All right, go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do, who you help, and how you help them.
Thank you so much. I am Naomi Fox Reina, and I teach light-filled astrology and light-filled human design, which ultimately those are tools that help us to be able to discover the truth of who we actually are without really being able to see what's going on, without flooding something with loving, gentle light. We just kind of wander around thinking there's something fundamentally wrong with us when that's just not true. And so I love being able to turn the light on and help people to see what is true about themselves.
Oh, how did you get into doing that?
The way that most people do that help people with this kind of soul work, I went through hell, and this was the thing that provided that illuminated the path back to myself. And I was going through my second divorce. My first marriage was really hard. I was super naive, got out, got therapy, got together, and then got into a far, far, far worse marriage. And that was absolute hell. And getting out of that, my brain was scrambled and I really just didn't even know which way was up. And I had moved to a new town and I met somebody who did hair. It was my friend's friend. She said, go see Julie. Julie is a character. She cuts hair out of her home. She teaches at the school too, but she has a huge tattoo of Edward Scissorhands on her forearm, and she smokes a vape and drinks wine and cusses like a sailor while she cuts your hair, and is just like this genuinely authentic, fabulous person. And she's like, I'm really into astrology, and I was like, that's terrific. I'm not at all. I don't think it really fits me, but I'm happy for you. And she was like, okay, do you know the minute you were born? And I was like, yeah. So she runs my chart and proceeds to tell me unbelievably detailed information about myself. And we had had minimal exchanges before this conversation. And she is able to kind of sum up very quickly with so much love, like maybe why I'm going through a second divorce and how I got into this situation, and just a few other tidbit insights from the little bit she knew about my life. And it blew my mind and opened my heart. And I just knew that I needed to understand everything about how she could possibly know those things.
That's quite a story of getting into astrology.
Yeah.
So, how would you say your approach is different than others in the same field?
So in the world of astrology, astrology is ancient. Human design is fairly new, that it only came onto the planet in the late 80s, in its most baby form, and really has only been gaining momentum in the last 10 years or so. And so with that, you have a lot of people that have been studying these systems and are putting out data and facts and information. What I found is that a lot of people speak what they call truth or accuracy, but it's harsh and it doesn't come with love. And to me, if you're speaking truth and there's not love with it, that's not truth, that's something else. It's a form of cruelty. And so when we can see something with love through the lens of compassion, which I believe is really the way that the divine sees us, and I think that when we can see things the way that God or the divine sees it, then we see things accurately. And so to me, being able to look at this and go, okay, what's right about this? And what's beautiful here? While also acknowledging, the less than savory aspects of ourselves. And we come to see that there's actually nothing wrong with us. There never was. Yes, there are areas where we could improve and where we don't show up as our best self, but I believe that being able to see ourselves accurately means being able to see what's really going on in the light without the shadows, without hiding, without lying to ourselves. And that is the fundamental crux of everything that I do.
That's amazing. And I know you've been doing a lot of networking. So, how have you changed your networking strategy over time from when you were just starting out until now?
Oh my gosh. It has changed leaps and bounds because understanding my astrology was helpful, but what really shifted was when I understood my human design. And for those that are not familiar with human design, it's another system that's a synthesis of Western astrology, the Kabbalah, the I Ching, the the zodiac, the chakras, and quantum physics. And so it really sheds a light on how our energy is managed and what's a more correct, aligned way for us individually to live and how other people experience us. And so on the system of human design, I'm what's called a projector. which means I have a penetrating aura, and it means that I need to wait to be invited. And that will completely change the networking game because sometimes people with networking will say, just go out and like meet as many people as you possibly can. And that is a wonderful strategy for certain types, and it's a totally awful strategy for other types. So being able to understand how you are and how you move. I always joke being a projector is the best and the worst one because when you're not living true to yourself, you can really bungle up your life pretty bad. And when you are living true to yourself, it's like the red carpet rolls out and life just works.
So what was it like before versus after?
So before I would just kind of exhaust myself, I would just go everywhere and talk to everyone, and that had its benefits for sure. I'm somebody that likes to say yes to life, and so that was very much a consistent flow for me. Um, but it left me very worn out with a lot of health issues because I simply was overgiving, like the disproportionate level of output to input. I couldn't keep up with it. It wasn't sustainable. And so now I am very choosy. I am more careful about what I say yes to so that I'm not hemorrhaging that energy out in places that are just not going to be effective.
Totally makes sense. What would you say are the best ways to get the most out of networking events?
Oh, I think being able to approach them without an agenda, I think is probably the most effective way that I've personally found. Now, I understand that for other people, this may not be the most effective thing. This is one of the things I'm the most passionate about. Like, there's not one singular way to do things, even if it sounds right, even if it's totally worked for you and 10 other people, that does not mean that it's the correct way for everyone. So, I love in human design, there's something called motivation. And I see this as like a divine motivation. Like when you're in your highest, most elevated place, this is where you'll operate from. And I'm what's called innocence motivation. So I do very best if I truly do not have an agenda. If I'm just showing up and I'm here for it and like whatever happens and I'm unattached, I think that that's good advice for everyone in general because I think attachment is the root of all suffering. But for me, especially, I have found that there really just isn't a lot of wiggle room. If I have much of an agenda, I'll probably get what I want. I'm very good at that. I'm very driven naturally, and I like things to go the way I like them to. But I'm happiest and I get the best results when I just kind of show up with an open heart and a strong back and just kind of am aware of who I am and I hold my own energy within myself, but I'm also very open to whatever happens from the situation.
That totally makes sense because you don't know who's going to be at the networking event. You don't know who you're going to connect with or what they might know and what they might be able to help you with. So
Yeah, for sure.
I think that really makes a lot of sense. Would you say you're more introverted or extroverted, and how does that affect the choices you make about networking?
I am a highly extroverted person. When I would take like the Myers-Briggs tests, every time I would get like 97% extroverted. But when I hit some health issues, it was really fascinating because I wasn't capable of being as, I literally didn't have the energy to be as extroverted. And so I went on this walkabout for like 8 years of really struggling to have energy and just unpacking and looking at like what is my fundamental personality because it changes to some extent when you just don't have the juice, when you don't have the fuel to like actually show up. And I noticed that I love starting conversations. I'll smile at strangers when I see them. And just, I remember the moment I noticed it, I was like, oh, I'm definitely naturally an extrovert. I just have to be careful without giving away too much of my energy to the places that aren't going to replenish it. And, but in human design, I'm what's called a hermit, which blew my mind when I read that. I was like, how could I possibly be a hermit? I'm the most extroverted person that I know. But what that means is that I need time alone without anybody looking at me, like literally physically, like out of the presence of anybody else to create, to be with myself and my own thoughts. And so I think I'm just naturally wired to be incredibly extroverted. And I also think that introversion is a form of balance. And people can be naturally introverted. And then in that case, the extroversion would be a form of balance. And I also think that when most people say that they're overly introverted, but they don't mind being around animals or things like that, that it's much more of that they simply are tired of wearing a mask and trying to show up in a specific way is exhausting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So getting comfortable, being uncomfortable is part of the entrepreneur skill set. What helped you get past that when things felt uncomfortable?
Oh, discomfort is such an interesting thing because the more that we cling to the idea that we shouldn't be uncomfortable, the more miserable we make our lives. Where being okay with discomfort, I'm not talking about like jumping into a burning situation and like subjecting ourselves, but I have found a lot of resourcefulness in my life with being able to be uncomfortable. And um, I also understand and appreciate that some people just genuinely struggle with networking and connection and all of that. And I think it's due to a lot of self-judgment. They think that people are judging them, but really it's just that they're judging themselves because we can't care too deeply about other people judging us unless we are deeply judging ourselves and thinking there's something fundamentally wrong. So this is where like running your own business or doing anything that does require networking is a really beautiful self-improvement tool because you cannot progress, you cannot have success unless you do the work, unless you go back in and everything is a mirror, but people especially are mirrors and networking is inherently meeting a lot of people. And so if you're in a job where you interact with 3 people a month, you don't have a lot of mirrors. But if you're in a job where you interact with 10 people an hour, you're going to have a lot of mirrors coming at you. And so, unless you do the work and you really come to love yourself and forgive yourself and feel the feelings, you're just going to get stuck and you're going to say, this doesn't work and I'm no good at this, or, that was awful and it was hell and I never want to do that again. When really all it is a mirror just shining back to you areas where you want to improve. And I believe our soul wants to progress and expand more than anything, which is why we keep finding ourselves in uncomfortable situations because it's this forever progression and moving forward. Because at a soul level, that's our biggest priority. Even if consciously we're like, no, 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 I want to be comfortable and I don't want to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. Our soul is really what's driving it.
Yeah, I I've definitely had my share of getting comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, and I think sometimes the misconception is just because it feels uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that it's not aligned, and it's your soul saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
you need to do this thing," even if you're feeling emotionally like not wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And uncomfortable is very different than wrong. And unless you get still with it and you can listen, sometimes things are just wrong and it feels a little bit like discomfort. But if you can kind of tease out the difference, that's where you can have discernment. But if you're just like, if you say no just because it's uncomfortable, you're going to miss out on a lot of wonderful things.
What have you found is the best way to balance networking with the other things you do in business and life so you set aside the right amount of time for it?
Oh goodness. I wouldn't say that I've got this down. I've had different seasons of my life where most of what I was doing professionally was networking and I loved it. Um, but going through such a long stretch of just simply not being able to, um, it really has shaken some things up. I miss being able to just have the energy to go and do all the networking and just be in spaces with people. I think people are wonderful, but it's a little bit of it's a tricky thing because if you're in flow with networking, it will bring you probably everything that you're looking for in your expansion of your business if your business is set up to thrive with networking. And most businesses will improve with networking, but some, like, it's the bloodline of it. And so it really, I'm not a fan of balance in the sense of like making sure that the balance sheet comes out perfect on like you give this amount of time and an equivalent amount of time to the other thing. I don't think that's what true balance is. I think we go through seasons of ebbs and flows where we maybe really invest in networking so that we can get something going. And then maybe we pull back on networking because then we're delivering the thing that we networked about. And so I think unattaching from having an agenda on like I need to net like I don't do well. I've learned if I set out like I have to do this many hours a week of this thing or whatever, like I don't do that well with that much structure. And so, but I could see how some people that would be really fostering to them. It would be very nurturing and supportive to be like, here is the structure, you do this, and this is how you keep things moving forward. I'm a very self-motivated person, and I think maybe somebody who struggles to be as self-motivated would do well to like set a goal and hit it every week. Otherwise, they would just sort of like lay around and not do anything.
Yeah, and you're right. It is different for different people, and some people need more structure, and other people that's like too much structure. So,
hmm
how have collaborations been part of your networking strategy?
I love collaborations. It's something I'm always open to. I know that the future of my business in particular, I think this is a very feminine experience. I think this is very much like the way of the future too. I would love to see even more collaborations and just kind of being open to them and seeing what comes along and seeing where things can be a win-win. I've definitely had, like, I've collaborated and done retreats with other people that are teaching their whole own thing, and I'm teaching my whole own thing, and it's just gorgeous. And you just watch people transform through the retreats so effectively. And just working with people that are offering sessions because I can't do all the sessions. That's been really helpful from the people that I've certified through my certification programs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had certification programs. What are those in?
I guess I skipped over that in my intro. So I have a full certification program in light field astrology, and I have a full certification program in light field human design. So I've certified, I think, about 75 professionals so far, and had like, I don't know, we're at like 150 students or so have gone through the programs. Those have been going for the last 4 years, and it's just really incredible to watch people not only master the subject, but then be able to take it and infuse it with their own gifts and just go help so many people.
That's incredible. What are some of the benefits that you have gotten out of networking?
I found some of the most amazing people in my life, and I just think that I think networking can bring you a lot of joy, and when you're staying open and curious, it can really bring you um, opportunities and solutions to things that you didn't imagine could come from it.
Definitely. What are your thoughts on tapping into your intuition when networking, and how does that work for you?
Oh, I don't know how to not tap into my intuition anymore. It's everything goes through that filter of intuition, and I wasn't always that way, but I really really trust my intuitive sense and my spiritual gifts, and I'm continually cultivating them and thinking on them and seeking to have them expand in ways that are most like helpful. And I just think that that can absolutely lead you to the right space in the right place with the right amount of conversation with the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. I've personally found it so important for networking because you have decisions to make. Like you can't be at every networking event, so you have to pick which one to go to. And you're not going to follow up with everybody, so you're going to pick, okay, these are the people that I want to follow up with. So
Yeah.
it's important. And then especially as you bring those relationships into collaborations and stuff as well. All right. Any closing remarks for things that you want to add here?
I just would love for anybody who's listening to know that there is so much more amazing within you than you realize. And when you walk into a networking situation, virtually or in person, and you know that you have some treasure inside of you that would help another person, even if it's just the beingness of who you are. It's not a performance. It's not a like, let me produce this thing so that they will like me or they'll approve of me or help me get to my next goal. But if you know that within you is a treasure, and then you also are looking for the treasure in other people, I think that supersedes everything. And when we can really hold that space, I just think it's great.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.